Recently, Miles of Hikikomori Media uploaded a video talking about his brush with YouTuber burnout. I highly suggest watching the original video, as I don't want to give just a bullet-by-bullet recap. But suffice it to say, it can be hard to be a smaller YouTuber. At one point, he touches briefly on how he's reached 20,000 subscribers after about a decade of making videos, and how it can be discouraging seeing channels come after you and just shoot up in success. And I fucking get it, man. I myself have been semi-consistently making videos on this channel since I was 17 years old. And as I've grown into my early 20s, those 300 subs have amassed to almost 3,000, which is amazing. But on the flip side, the more I put into this hobby thing, the less I understand any of it. So oftentimes I'll watch YouTube videos about advice to making my own stuff. Many of these are funny videos just combing through the process piece by piece. Some are more analytical looks at the writing that goes into it. There's even some that are about the advice that you shouldn't take, but there's one clip that's lived in my mind that sort of made me rethink not just these videos, but what the fuck I'm even doing here. There's a part in Zoe B's video on making video essays, who's another creator that I'm very fond of, where she just says,
Matt, please stop making video game reviews. We have enough of those.
Obviously, when I saw that, I began sweating bullets. But she's not the only creator who holds this belief. There's been a similar sentiment shared among other content creators, even those in gaming spaces. I watched this very great video called How We Talk About Games, where many prominent names like Jacob Geller and Writing in Games give their opinions on how games criticism has changed over time. And there's an entire section of that video where people talk about the rigidity of game reviews and scores, which immediately makes me realize that they're only really thinking about publications. Because the thing is, that Zoe B quote comes right after praising Tim Rogers' work with his long-form action button reviews. As somebody who's become somewhat of a Tim Rogers historian since discovering his Tokimeki Memorial video, that guy's writing style has been that way forever, dating all the way back to his written MGS2 review and probably before that. It doesn't really matter whether or not he's making a video for a publication, so it makes you question whether it has something to do with the format of a game review, or more so about your writing, your presentation, your experience, your humor. Those two videos legitimately made me question not only the useless drivel most YouTube advice channels give only to sell their products and programs, but even advice given by well-meaning creators who I legitimately admire. And also, don't harass anybody in this video. If you do, I will find you. Most videos that fall into that latter group can be categorized as hopelessly optimistic advice. I don't have enough fingers to count how many times I've been told to be an authority in my field in order to make a video on a subject. And while I think that this advice comes from a good place, it's too head in the clouds. Many creators who even do a lick of research on game development or are fascinated by the history of games and the people behind them can and will be trampled over by people using Wikipedia as their only source. For the love of God, click the citations and read the original article. Video game reviews are boring. An insane opinion to see regurgitated when people like Some Call Me Johnny exist. Also, this isn't a belief that people have in film or movie spaces, so it's a little weird. You should niche your channel down. Or maybe don't pigeonhole yourself into making only one thing forever. Long form videos are better. Or maybe it all depends on the scope of the subject, as well as your passion and knowledge about said subject. And also, as somebody who watches a lot of things that are called video essays, most videos over an hour need an editor to cut out all the fluff. And of course, how could I not mention the one that we've been hearing for the past decade or so? Let's Plays are dead. No, they're not. Long-form ones with minimal editing and uninteresting commentary are. As much as this can sound like people just talking out of their ass, again, most of this is coming from well-meaning video creators, just trying to give you some advice. But the thing is, we blame the creators for not conforming to trends on the platform that was popularized solely on the premise of sharing whatever you're passionate about. Every single one of us, regardless of our levels of success, gets so caught up in click-through rates, CPMs, AdSense, and engagement that we can easily forget that YouTube themselves plays a gigantic part as to whether or not your videos get seen. Now, I'm not gonna pull words out of my ass like shadow banning, but there's undeniably more going on in the background than is let on. Something that's very true for me right now. Since my Simpsons video did ridiculously well, my CPM went up, which means that I and YouTube make a few more dollars per 1,000 views. And as a result, not only were my newer videos shown to more people, allowing them to get to 1,000 views faster than they usually do, but they even upload faster. As a smaller channel, it can take upwards of 20 minutes to an hour for a video to finish processing, and that's for videos that are 30 minutes max. But for my past 3 videos, it's been about 6 minutes tops. However, the flip side is that my newest video on Before the Storm, I just sort of threw it up whenever I finished it like I always do, which in this case was at midnight. Which meant that less people watched it in the first hour, which completely borked the first 24 hours worth of the video. Not to mention that the IGN article I linked in the description about the racism at the developer Deck 9 had the word Nazi in it. And I don't think YouTube was very happy about that being in my description. So the video was underperformed, and God knows whether or not it'll ever make a comeback. I say this because no matter how much advice or tips and tricks people will throw your way, nothing prepares you for shit like that. And that's because simply, nobody fucking knows what they're talking about. Look at me. Look at me in the eyes. Everybody is just throwing things at the wall, hoping something will stick. And if something does, that doesn't mean that you get to coast by on it. No, tomorrow you will wake up and start throwing more shit at that motherfucking wall. As negative and frankly mentally disturbed as I sound right now, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's that the good will prevail. Eventually. People who make entire jobs out of mining the well of a trend on the platform will leave once the resources have dried up. And great videos will slowly come across the feeds of those who are interested in it. It just might take a few years. Or 8. It can be very easy to look at the amount of burnout and dissatisfaction that comes with making YouTube videos and get discouraged or upset. And again, I get it. Whenever I start working on a bigger project, it makes me wonder what I'm even doing this for. I can tell myself that it's just for passion and the little money and views that I get are just secondary, but in the back of my mind, I wonder if I'm just essentially gambling with my free time, hoping that one day it'll all be different. But that's creeping closer and closer to a doomer outlook, and that's pretty cringe. The point is, I don't fucking know everything, and neither do you. Nobody does. And anybody telling you that they do is trying to self-soothe, which is totally fine and understandable, or is attempting to sell you something. But again, it's not all bad. No matter how many people before you have walked it, it doesn't matter if they were faster or slower, the trail is still unmarked. But that doesn't mean that you won't eventually find your own way. Alright, back to video games. Fuck you.
I got a 40 up my hip, I got a 30 up my nose, I got